Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spill the Pea. This week, we are diving into Vayeishev. So, we open with Yaakov settling in the land of his fathers, and then we're told about Yaakov's offspring. So, Yosef, at 17, was a shepherd with his brothers. Yosef would also tell Yaakov when his brothers misbehaved. And nobody likes a tattletale. I used to be a tattletale myself. Then it says Israel loved Yosef more than any of the other sons, since he was a child of Yaakov's old age. And so then Yaakov made him a wool tunic. So his brothers saw the wool tunic and that he was the favorite. And so, of course, they hated him and they weren't very nice to him. So then Yosef makes a little mistake. He has this dream where they were all in a field working, and his sheaf arose and stood tall, and the sheaves of the brothers bowed down to his sheaf. So, of course, this made his brothers hate him more. So they said to him, "What? So you're going to be in charge of us? You are going to dominate us?" And they hated him even more. Again, Yosef has a dream, and he tells his brothers that the sun and the moon and the 11 stars all would bow down to him. So then his father gets upset with him, and he's like, "What are you, crazy? Me and your mother and your brothers are going to bow down to you?" So his brothers are out taking their father's flocks to pasture in Shechem. And Israel says, "Aren't your brothers out in Shechem? Go to them." So then Yosef was like, "Hineni, here I am." So Israel says, "Go check on your brothers and the flocks, and then come back and let me know how everything's going." So Yosef goes to the valley of Hebron and he gets to Shechem. On his way, a man saw him and is like, "What do you seek?" So Yosef tells the man he's looking for his brothers, and he asks if the man knows where they went. So the man says that he heard them mentioning something about going to Dothan. So Yosef goes to Dothan. His brothers saw him from afar and conspired amongst themselves to kill him. So they decided that they were going to toss him in a pit and just tell everyone that a beast ate him. So then Reuben was like, "We're not going to hit him. We cannot shed blood. Just throw him in the pit and leave him be." He was saying this in the hopes of being able to return him to their father after the other brothers had moved on. So finally, Yosef gets to them. They tear off his tunic and throw him in the pit with no water. The brothers sat down to eat, and they saw some Ishmaelites coming from Gilead and heading to Egypt. So Judah says, what do we gain from killing our brother? Let's just sell him to the Ishmaelites, and they'll do what they please. I mean, we can't kill him. He is our brother after all. So they sold him for 20 pieces of silver. Then Reuben goes back to look for Yosef in the pit, and he's nowhere to be found. So they take Yosef's tunic, dip it in some goat's blood, and then take it to their dad, and we're like, we found this. Does this belong to your son or not? And Yaakov was like, why? This is my son's tunic. An evil beast must have shredded him to pieces. And he was devastated. He mourned Yosef for days, and no one could console him. And Yaakov says, "I will go to the grave mourning him." And he continued crying for Yosef. So now Yosef has been bought and sold so many times. He's currently in Egypt, and he's owned by someone who's working for the Pharaoh. Then we're with Judah, and he sees the daughter of a merchant and decides to marry her. She has a son, and his name is She has a second son, whose name is Onan. And then she has a third son named Shelah, and she was in Chezib when she had him. So Judah found a wife, Tamar, for his first son, but was evil in the eyes of Hashem, so he died. So Judah told Onan to marry Tamar, but Onan wasn't into it and didn't really want to provide offspring for his brother. So he was then seen as evil in the eyes of Hashem. So Onan also died. So Judah says to Tamar, listen, just stay a widow until my youngest son is old enough to marry you. Hopefully he's not going to die like his brothers did. So then Judah's wife dies, and he decides to shear some sheep with his friend Hira in the place of Timnah. So Tamar hears that Judah is headed that way. She takes off her mourning clothes and she puts on a veil because Shelah was already old enough to be married to her, but Judah didn't make the match yet. So then Judah saw her and thought because her face was covered, she must be a harlot. So Judah was like, go get yourself ready. I'm coming your way. Wink, wink. And Tamar was like, but what's in it for me? So Judah was like, I'm going to give you a goat. And Tamar says, how am I supposed to know that you're going to keep your word? So Judah's like, lady, what do you want from me? And so Tamar was like, I want your seal, I want your wrap, and I want your staff, or no deal. So he gave them to her. Later on, he went to her and she ended up getting pregnant. 3 months later, someone tells Judah that Tamar's a pregnant harlot. And Judah was like, okay, yalla, burn her. So Tamar was about to get snatched, but she ends up sending word to her father-in-law's house and was like, whoever this seal, wrap, and staff belong to is the man who got me pregnant. So Judah was like, yikes, those are definitely mine. So turns out Tamar was pregnant with twins. So the first baby puts his hand out and the midwife ties a red string around his hand so they know he was first. Then he takes his hand back. And then the other boy comes out first, named Perez. Then the red string baby comes out, named Zerah. So now we go back to Yosef and Egypt. Hashem was with Yosef and he was very successful. His Egyptian master saw how successful he was because of Hashem, so he had favor for Yosef and made him the manager of his household. And then Hashem blessed the Egyptian's household because of Yosef. So Yosef was handsome on the inside and on the outside. So his master's wife was hitting on him. And Yosef was like, look, lady, your husband has literally given me everything. The only thing that I can't have is you. So how can I betray him? It's a sin against God. So every day she was trying to get with him, and every day he was shutting her down. And then one day, no one was in the house, and so she grabbed a hold of his garment, and he was like, not today, lady. So he ran away, but she got his garment. How could this possibly go wrong? So then, just as a rejected woman does, she yells out and she says that Yosef tried to get with her, but then when she raised her voice, he ran away and left his garment. Then when the master came back home, she told him the same story. And of course, he gets pissed off, and naturally, he throws Yosef into prison. So Hashem was in prison with Yosef and made him favorable in the eyes of the warden. So the warden put all of the other inmates under Yosef's control. And the warden knew that whatever Yosef did was going to have success because Hashem was with him. So then a couple of the guys who were working for the Pharaoh turned against the Pharaoh and ended up in prison also. Both of them ended up having dreams on the same night. Yosef saw them the next day and noticed that they were looking a bit down. So he's like, what's wrong with you guys? And they were like, well, we had these dreams, but we don't have anybody to interpret them. And Yosef was like, well, God interprets everything, so why don't you tell me? And the first guy says, well, in my dream, there was a grapevine with 3 tendrils, and we thought it was blooming, And then the fruits became grapes, and I pressed the fruit and put it in Pharaoh's cup and gave it to him. And Yosef is like, well, the tendrils are symbolic of days. So in 3 days, the Pharaoh is going to call on you and you're going to get your job back. And if you think of me after all this, and you could please do me the kindness to ask for me to be released because I'm Hebrew and I was kidnapped years ago and I've been a prisoner here for no reason. So then the second guy is like, well, in my dream, I had 3 wicker baskets on my head, and in the top basket was all the Pharaoh's food, and the birds were eating it. And Yosef was like, the baskets are symbolic of days. And in 3 days, the Pharaoh is going to hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh. So then, on the third day, the Pharaoh had a feast, and he restored the first guy as his chamberlain of cupbearers, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. And the other guy was restored as the chamberlain of bakers, and he was hanged. And this is how we end the story. So first we have Yaakov settling in the land of his fathers, Abraham and Isaac. Yaakov also reached a state of alignment. Yosef was a shepherd, little bit of a nudnik, but had a good heart nonetheless. And it says that Israel loved him. Why do we move back and forth between Yaakov and Israel? Yaakov is the earth-bound physical connection in this world. Israel is aligned, consciously connected to Hashem. So Israel loves Yosef. So then Yosef tells everyone his dreams, and completely innocently, he was sharing like a little kid does. Unfortunately, it backfired. So we fast forward a bit, and his brothers are in Shechem. So Israel says, go to them. And Yosef says, Hineni. Why does it matter? Because Israel is communicating from a place of alignment. And although Yosef is young and arguably naive, he still shows up in Hineni. Our innocence, vulnerability, allows us to show up as Hineni. To be vulnerable can happen at any age. Okay, so then he goes through the valley of Hebron. Hebron comes from the root haver in Hebrew, which means connection, friend, unity. So he's going to the depths of this place to understand how to connect before he meets his brothers. So then Yosef sees this man who tells him that the brothers are going to Dothan. Dothan means 2 wells, a place where there's water. Why 2? 2 is choice between paths, to unite or separate. So then we fast forward, and his brothers sell him for 20 pieces of silver. How often do we reduce the value of innocence, the value of vulnerability? They sold the guy for 20 pieces of silver, not even gold. How little they value their vulnerability. Most times in life, we devalue our vulnerability because vulnerability can be one of the most scary things that we experience in life. And because it's so terrifying, we don't care to deal with it, or maybe we don't understand how to deal with it. So we push it to the side, we shove it deep down into a pit, we send it to deeper levels of constriction. And the more we avoid our vulnerability, the more we make misaligned choices. They might be moral ish choices, just as Yosef brothers decided not to kill him, but it's definitely not an aligned choice overall. So now we fast forward a bit, and Judah is having all of these babies with the merchant's daughter. So the first son, meaning awake or alert. The second son, Onan, meaning strength. And the third son, Shelah, meaning tranquility. But he was born in Chezib, meaning falsehood. A lot of times we take actions in a very bold way, but to be awake is not the same thing as to be aware. So, in this alert state, we feel that because of our alertness, our actions must be right. So we have conviction and we take our actions in strength. And we believe our actions have led us to tranquility. However, when our actions are taken out of alignment with the Creator, there's false peace. And because it's false, the peace fades. And then most people find themselves in this cycle of chasing peace through strong action and then falling flat again. So Judah found a wife for his first son, again meaning awake or alert. Anybody can be awake. Not everyone is connected. So Hashem decided that he needed to die. So then the wife goes to Onan. Strength means everything to people. Vulnerability means everything to Hashem. So Hashem decided that he needed to die too. Shelah, the tranquility, was being preserved, held until properly prepared. So now we fast forward, and Tamar has veiled herself and is trying to get Judah. But Judah assumes that she was a harlot because of the veil. This is similar to another situation we experienced. If we remember previously, Rebekah veiled herself when first meeting Isaac. Why? Rebekah knew that the light that she had was precious, and so she veiled herself for the sake of modesty. What's the difference here? Tamar decides to veil herself in order to deceive Judah. Same action, different intention. One is aligned, one is misaligned. So Judah, because he does have an aligned foundation from his fathers, could sense that something wasn't kosher about the situation. In spite of this, he went along with it anyways. Does this sound familiar? Women doing their best to wear a mask or a veil, be someone that they're not, so that they can take love, validation, affection, money from a man. And because energetically we can sense when things are off, Judah assumed she was a harlot. So he was giving her what she wanted, but he wasn't necessarily giving her anything of foundational value. So then she gets pregnant and she has the two sons, Perez and Zerah. So now we go back to Yosef in Egypt with his master's wife. And one day no one is home and she goes for him again and she grabs his garment and he escapes the garment and he runs away. And we were also just told that Yosef is handsome inside and out. When you're aligned internally, you naturally have external beauty. We are all energetic beings and we sense and soften to light many times before we're even aware of it. And when you emanate light on this level, we've all heard the term like moths to a flame. The light that we emanate is the flame that ignites the light in other people. It's the light amongst the nations. The master's wife was trying to take light from Yosef. So she felt the light that he held and she wanted it. And this is coming from a place of lack. Fortunately, Yosef had a solid foundation and he held on to his alignment with Hashem. He does land himself in prison, but this is what it means to be Hineni. Life can take us on roller coasters, but Yosef was blessed because his relationship with the Creator was unshakable. Then in prison, Yosef is blessed and given responsibility, and we have Pharaoh's men who have the dreams, and Yosef interprets them, and he pleads with one of them to help him be released. And then in the end, Yosef's interpretations of their dreams come to light. Vayeishev is the third and final of our sequence of the trilogy. First, we have Vayetzi, and he went, movement out, beginning the journey. Second, we have Vayishlach, and he sent forth to become into the path that you are taking. And lastly, we have Vayeishev, and he sat to settle in. When we say and, it's generally the continuation of something. However, each time it's the beginning. It's like a renewed force. Many times in our relationship with our Creator, we are challenged to pause for the Ruach, the breath, and just move, and just do, and just be. The and is like new chapters in a book we're reading. Our stories keep flowing, and at the same time, in order to be able to receive our next breath, we must release what we currently hold. Each breath is a new moment. Each breath is a new and then. We get so caught up in the mundanity and the habitual nature of our lives that many times the breath we take is not taking us into a new moment. There's no pause between. We just rush from one breath to the next. But life needs moments of release. Release allows more space to be created in your vessel. The more space you allow in your vessel, the more light you allow in. So Yosef goes through the valley of Hebron, which is connection, friendship. When we choose to focus on connection and coming together, it's a lot easier for us to overlook things that we may not like or appreciate in someone. Connection means choosing to see the light, choosing to see the divine in someone. It's not always an easy choice, but it is a choice. And when we make this choice to give compassion, to give mercy, to give love, and to see someone's light, we are literally being that in which we were created to be. Our Creator chooses to give to us in each moment, in spite of all of the reasons that He has not to. We lie, we steal, we gossip, we shame, we do so many things that make us unworthy of compassion. But the nature of our Creator is love. Love is unity, connection, and love always gives. So as you step into this week, remember when you face any situation with someone, whether it's your kids lying to you or your friend or whoever, or maybe somebody's gossiping about you or someone shamed you for something, take a breath, create space for the Creator's light within you. This light will allow you the capacity to give grace, to give the grace that we receive every moment of every day. And in this, you can connect to the divine that exists within everyone. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you on the next one.